You are listening to Our Urban Voices with Dr. Alphonse Javed, a podcast that presents Christian narratives through diverse voices that impact urban ministry. Here is your host.
In this podcast, we cover everything from churches and church planting efforts, mission and missions organization, evangelism, and unreached people groups, emerging movements and initiatives, justice, current events related to faith, and the persecuted church, to author interviews, and more. Let's get to it. Hi, I'm so glad that you're here with us, and I love our friendship. We have known each other for so long, and I just wanted to give our audience to hear from you directly. Introduce yourself and tell us who you are, how long you've been around on this planet. No, that's not what I'm asking. In this city, we are recording this here in New York City. I am sitting in Manhattan, on the corner of 57 and Broadway, and my friend Michael is right now in Queens, I believe. So go ahead, Michael.
Well, I'm Pastor Michael Herbert. I'm the Dean of New York School of the Bible, and I'm also the full-time pastor of Chinese Evangel Mission Church of Queens. I was born in London, England, of West Indian parents. My mother was from Barbados, and my father was from Trinidad. But I was born in England, and then moved back to Barbados, and lived in Barbados for 12 years. Then moved back to England for another 5, and eventually left England in 1981 to come to the United States to study, to get my my degree in accounting. In the midst of that, I came to faith, and the Lord redirected my trajectory for life, and so I ended up being in ministry. But in being in ministry, pastoral ministry, and working in numerous accounting jobs, and started seminary while I was going to school in Texas. But I came to New York City in 1999, August 19th, 1999. And I came here to be a part of a church plant, New Song Community Church, a multi-ethnic, multicultural church that was affiliated with Redeemer Presbyterian Church. And I was a part of that for about 2.5 years, then left there to go back to seminary. I wanted to finish my Master of Divinity. So I became a member of First Baptist Church of Flushing. And I was there for 7 years, and eventually graduated from Bethel Seminary of the East, my Master of Divinity. And Bethel Seminary of the East had a bit of they had a New York campus. And when I graduated from the New York campus, they asked me to be the center director. So I did that for 2.5 years until the New York center was closed down. Bethel just couldn't, they couldn't keep up with the extreme expense of having a center in New York. But while I was doing that, I also became the pastor of Fellowship Bible Church. And of course, you've spoken at our Fellowship Bible Church a couple of times, I remember, and I pastored there for 10 years. And then after 10 years, I resigned from that position, and I felt that the Lord was really taking us to a new part of the journey. And I had a sense of calling to, multicultural ministry and cross-cultural ministry. And so I left there, and maybe for about a year, I was doing a lot of interim speaking, a lot of teaching. I was teaching at New York School of the Bible for 10 years. And then before I knew it, I was being offered the position of being a pastor of Chinese Evangel Mission Church of Queens, which is an American-born Chinese congregation. Our services are in English. I'm the English pastor. The English congregation is the dominant congregation. So, once I became pastor there 3 years ago, in 2018, April 2018, soon after that, after I became pastor there, then Pastor Mike Velardo retired from New York School of Bible, and I was asked if I would consider being the dean of New York School of Bible. So, soon after I became pastor of CMCQ, then I became dean. I accepted the offer after some prayer and contemplation. And so that's what I'm doing now. I do these two jobs. My full-time job is pastoring, and my part-time job is being dean of New York School of Bible. But that's just on paper. They're both full-time jobs.
Yeah, and you do a lot, and I know that because I've seen you throughout these years serving the Lord in New York City. But what I want to do right now is to talk about some of those challenges that a pastor faces. So let me ask you a simple question. Is it easy to find a pastoral job in New York City? Is it easy to find an opportunity somewhere to pastor a church in New York City?
Well, that's a question that's a difficult question to answer, because it really depends on, first of all, what kind of church you're looking for, and second of all, your theological position, because there are all kinds of churches in New York, as you would imagine. We are a metroplex area, but I will say this. If you are a person of color and you have a Master of Divinity or and experience, there is a wide open market for they're looking for ministers. The problem is that sometimes the churches that you will find that are available, they're not a good fit for you, because everybody tends to be a bit segmented in our city, and everyone kind of sticks with their own tribe. My particular niche was that I was looking for cross-cultural ministry, and there was not many opportunities for that. There was not many opportunities. Most of the churches that I interviewed for were really not open to cross-cultural ministry. They were particularly geared towards a specific ministry or a specific ethnic group, which is okay, but that was not my lane and my niche. So there are not many opportunities for that in the city, which is surprising. But no, there are not many opportunities for a minority.
Yeah. So other than those factors that you just mentioned, and I still see you are saying that there are not many opportunities, especially meeting what
Correct,
you're looking for,
correct.
right? Okay, so then my second sub-question of the same concept would be, should a pastor expect to get paid well or moderate or just enough that the pastor is going to have to get a second job, or none of the above? What is in your experience? You have done so. You have so many experiences, and part of that experience right now, you're working with pastors who are students, your students, right, at NYSB, and you have had over the period of time so many friends who are in ministry. And I'm just wondering if a pastor is considering, and he is listening to this podcast, and he's like, you know what, Lord is calling me to go and serve in an urban setting. I'm gonna go to New York, sell everything, and trust the Lord. And oh yeah, this small little church in some neighborhood in the Bronx is offering me a job. I'm gonna go and serve. Should this person think about his family, finances? What should be watching out
I'll
for?
tell you this: regardless of even the most willing church, churches are struggling financially in the city, and so with the exception of a handful of large churches, the average church that you will encounter in New York City, you're going to have to either have a second job, or you're going to have the ability to raise funds. So I would say, if you're coming from out of town and you're coming to New York City, you really need to just come with an open mind that God does provide, but the provision may not come in the form of necessarily a full-time salary initially for a pastor. However, most churches that I have encountered, that are established churches, they have some kind of budget for their pastor. But in some denominational settings, they don't actually pay the pastor a full-time salary anyway. They raise money for the pastor in a number of ways. That the offering on Sunday morning, a portion goes to the pastor, or they have fundraisers for the pastor's anniversary. In the Black church, many churches don't pay their pastor a salary per se. It's pastor's anniversaries where they raise money, and they raise money from the pastor has to take other preaching opportunities and speaking opportunities. So I would say that any pastor who's coming with a family, that I think you have to be practical and just say, yes, you're coming by faith, but also come knowing that God's provision may not come in the form that you're accustomed to, as in a full-time salary. So you may have to raise money or have a part-time job. And certainly, most of the families I know who've come to New York, pastoral families, the wife comes knowing that she will probably have to work.
Wow. So I wonder how many people knew about this. I mean, I thank God I work for a church that is able to pay, but I also work with a large number of pastors, ethnically minority pastors here in New York City, who are either driving taxis in the morning or doing some sort of work, and then in the evening they go do their visitation, and on Sunday they preach. But I think when you're coming from outside of New York City, where the common practice is you have budgets and you have salaries, and it's hard to imagine the life of a pastor in New York City. So are you telling me that then a pastor who is contemplating to take New York City as his mission field or a place of work where he wants to serve, he should have the mindset of a missionary, where he's willing to commit to be a sacrificial family, right? So pastor means he's bringing his family with him, and then willing to raise his funds or not. So part of the thing I think I'm thinking as I'm talking, I'm thinking through part of the problem I see is New York City is a very demanding city. So if I am the one who is coming from outside in this city, even though I'm willing to sacrifice everything financially, I'm willing to take another job. But do you think I will able to do a good job here in New York City while I have a job where I supposed to work in order to get paid?
Yes, I think you can.
You see my struggle right
I
there?
see the struggle, but I also know realistically that is the struggle of most people in the city, with the exception of a handful of, churches. I'm very blessed that I'm pastoring a congregation that, we're middle class congregation that has been very thoughtful and prudent with finances and resources. We own our building. We don't have a mortgage. We don't have any high overheads. But even with that, we have to, we've taken a hit. So I can even imagine what all the churches that are, working class churches, when half your congregation through the pandemic, because of the pandemic, we're not working overnight, and you still have to pay bills. I know a couple of churches that were church plants that they signed new lease and new rental agreement with a landlord, and then the pandemic came, and now you can't even meet in the building. You see. So how do you sustain that? So yes, a pastor coming to this city, unless you know that the church is solid and secure financially, you're going to have to be entrepreneurial. And that I know a number of people who've come to the city and they've done well. But they had to be entrepreneurial. They had to be, because they have limited time as part-time pastors. What they do very well is that they delegate very well. They train people very well because they're not available to do everything. So it means that they have to work well with other people. And I found that pastors that are able to do that, who are able to train people and not be power hungry, they do very well, even in part-time bivocational ministry.
So let me take a different route, church planting route, right? So you said when you came here, when you started the ministry back in 1999, you were part of a church plant that was part of the Redeemer church planting movement, right? So I know for a fact, because I have we have few mutual friends who are part of Redeemer's church planting initiative that Pastor Keller launched as he was announcing his retirement because he was raising funds. So I got to speak to. So there is I did not dig deeper into that, but the idea I got out of that was so there's a two sets of churches, the under the umbrella of Redeemer. So the one set of churches is that are funded through this fund that Pastor Keller and team raised, right? So they don't have to worry about. I met with one of the pastors who is recipient of that those funds, and part of the reason was I just wanted to hear from him what's going on, how's his church plan, and he said, "Thank God, I don't need to worry about money. I don't need to raise money because the organization is taking care of that." But at the same time, then I was like, okay, so why such and such person is not? He said, because in the first phase, we have X amount of churches that will receive complete funding and the other were not. So I think that was the gist of that conversation. So now let me ask you, do we need to, so it's a twofold question. One, if you're planting a church here, do we need to be a part of some network in order to start a church here and hopefully receive some sort of funding? That's one. And two is, or as the Spirit leads, and that's reason second part, I'm bringing the second part because I know ethnically minority pastors, nobody told them there's a network. They didn't know that there are networks. They just had a community of their background, where they come from, and they just started. For example, a pastor from Pakistan saw a Pakistani community up over there in Brooklyn area, and he started a church there. So basically planted a church, and he doesn't call it planting a church. He just like, I started the church. So those are two things. One is, should people be looking for church networks to plant a church, or should they be looking for what is it that God is calling them to do, and led by that vision, come here and start a church?
I'm saying it's not either or, it's both. Because there are some unique individuals who have capacity. And I said those are only a handful who have capacity to come, and you put them in any city in the world, they'll get something going. They have a real apostolic type bent. You know, I'm not using the word as in, they just have this apostolic bent that they can go anywhere and start something. And they're people of faith, but they're actually also people who are very resourceful, and they have not acknowledged that. Very resourceful, very driven, and very independent in their thinking. However, the issue with that for me is that that's only a handful of people. Most people that come to New York City to start a church, it's folded within 5 years. 70% of church plants in New York City fold in 5 years. So I think that for most people, the most prudent thing and the best thing to do is to come to the city following the vision of God, but that once you get here, to understand that ministry in New York City is quite different than ministry in a suburban area, and ministry even in other cities in the United States. I've lived in Dallas, Texas. I lived in Dallas, Texas. I lived in Fort Worth, Texas. And both of those cities were different. But New York City was even more different. And I lived in London. And London and New York City are similar, but they're still different. New York is just a very unique animal. And so
Yeah.
I would say that it will be prudent for you to come to New York City and become a part of a network, even if it's not a network that's a denomination, because that's different. If you're a part of a network, then at least you have accountability, you have some shared resources, and you can receive some training, because none of us knows everything. None of us knows everything. And then some people are really great at planting a church, starting a church, but they're really not very good at growing a church and stabilizing the church, because then it takes on a different form. And they're the kind of people who, they love to start things, but 5 or 6 years, the entrepreneurial spirit is not what's needed now. What's needed now is a pastoral spirit and an ability to train people, to grind it out, to grow a congregation, to grow leaders, to release leaders, and to, at the same time, to continue to be a church that's not just inwardly looking or outwardly looking. It has to be both now, right? It has to nurture those that you have, and then you have to continue to be evangelistic, because that's what got the church started in the first place. But now you can easily get comfortable with what you have, and you stop looking outwardly, and you just become inwardly focused.
Wow, that's extremely wise, and I think that is one of those debates that continues, whether it should be focusing on the believers who come inside for, is the Sunday service to edify the body of Christ, the believers, or is the service for the seekers or those who have yet to come to Christ? Thus, you have mega churches focusing on attractional model where they focus on welcoming seekers, and most of their energy is spent on that. And then you have the other side of the extreme that completely dismisses such approach, and they just want, like, no, I just want to stick to the Bible, teach the Bible, and yet they continue to lose folks. And we have a couple of those churches right here in New York City who were committed to the word, but they became so inwardly focused that over the period of time, their number dwindled from hundreds, if not thousands, to just a few members. So that's true. And then there is this, even Pastor Keller, toward the end of his pastoral ministry here in New York City, he continues to be a strong leader in the area of church planting and several other initiatives. But toward the end of his pastorate here, before retirement, even he adopted a different model for church growth, rather than having one mega church with the sort of like, campuses, satellites. So I know that it continues to be an issue even in the city. Being a attractional, traditional church that my church is, Calvary, we are actually switching the same way. We are focusing more and more on discipleship, while keeping our eye on the outward things too, that is to do more outreach, missions, be more evangelistic. So Michael, as we close, brother, I want to ask you one last thing. You ready? Tell me a joke.
Oh man, I have too many to. You caught me. You caught me off guard with that one. That's good. I think I've had so many funny things happen recently, but I think that a funny thing that just happened just a few days ago was that, how we are doing so many things on Zoom now, and you dress from the from the waist up.
Waist up, waist up,
you have to be really aware of the fact that listen. And remember, you're not dressed from the waist down, at least not to be seen on camera. So I was leaving a meeting on Zoom, and I had my pajama pants on and some slippers. I was dressed. Please don't get me wrong, but I was in such a hurry to get down to the church for my next meeting, down to the church building, that I jumped up and I put my coat on, and I grabbed everything. I packed my computer, put it in the bag. I got my coat on. I ran downstairs, and I was about to go out the door, and I think my wife was coming in, or something, or someone that I knew was coming in, and they said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Oh, I'm going to work." And they said, "You still have your pajamas on." So I said, "Oh man, I had everything packed. I had it ready, and I forgot. I had my pajamas on, and I had my slippers on.
That's a good one. I love it.
That was my joke.
I love it. Were you late from the meeting?
No, man. Thank God I had, I was able to, I laid my pants and everything out. I just forgot that I hadn't put them on because the Zoom meeting was pressing. So I had to get on camera.
Thank you so much. That's definitely something. Yep, it made me laugh. So I hope the audience laughed too with you. With that, it comes to end at least this episode. And as always, I'm looking forward to our next episode next week with our next guest. Until then, God bless you all.
Blessings to you, brother.
You've been listening to Our Urban Voices with Dr. Alphonse Javed, which presents Christian narratives through diverse voices that impact urban ministry. Please check back for new episodes every week.